The loudest moment of Ethan's life was the day he said nothing. The room was filled with noise, anger, and judgment. 20 pairs of eyes were staring at him, waiting for his answer, waiting for his defense, waiting for his voice. His heart was beating fast, his hands were cold, and his mind was screaming, "Say something. Defend yourself. Don't stay silent." But Ethan did something that nobody expected. He stayed quiet. And that silence changed his life forever. Welcome to this story. As you listen, you will not only discover the power of silence, but you will also improve your English naturally, understand deeper emotions, and learn how silence can become your greatest strength. This is not just a story. This is a transformation. Ethan was not always silent. In fact, he was once the kind of person who talked too much. He believed that speaking more made him look smarter. He believed that answering every insult made him look stronger. He believed that explaining himself made people respect him. But instead, the opposite happened. People interrupted him. People ignored him. People did not respect him. And slowly, without realizing it, Ethan became tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of proving. Tired of speaking. He worked in a small office in the middle of a busy city. Every day, the office was filled with noise. People arguing, people complaining, people blaming each other. And Ethan was always in the middle of it. If something went wrong, he tried to explain. If someone blamed him, he defended himself. If someone insulted him, he answered back. But no matter how much he spoke, nothing improved. In fact, things became worse. People started seeing him as weak. Not because he was weak, but because he reacted to everything. One day, something happened that changed everything. His manager called him into the meeting room. Inside, several colleagues were sitting there. Their faces were serious. The manager looked at Ethan and said, "The client is unhappy. They say the project failed because of you." Ethan felt like the ground disappeared under his feet. He knew it was not true. He knew he had worked harder than anyone. He knew the mistake was not his. His mouth opened, ready to speak, ready to defend himself. But before he could say anything, one colleague said, "Yes, Ethan was responsible." Another said, "He missed important details." Another said, "He should have done better." Each word felt like a knife. His heart was burning. His mind was full of arguments, full of explanations, full of anger. He wanted to shout. He wanted to prove them wrong. He wanted to fight. But suddenly, he remembered something his grandfather once told him. His grandfather had said, "Silence is not weakness. Silence is power. Not everyone deserves your words. Ethan closed his mouth. He said nothing. The room became uncomfortable. People shifted in their chairs. They expected him to fight back. They expected him to argue. But his silence made them nervous. His silence made them uncertain. The manager looked at him and asked, "Ethan, do you have anything to say?" Ethan looked into his eyes and calmly said, "No." Just one word. No anger. No fear. No explanation. Just silence. That day, Ethan went home with a heavy heart. His mind was full of thoughts. He wondered if he made a mistake. He wondered if he should have defended himself. He wondered if his silence made him look guilty. But something strange happened. The next day, the truth came out. The manager discovered emails. He discovered reports. He discovered proof that Ethan was not responsible. In fact, Ethan was the only one who had done his job correctly. The others had blamed him to protect themselves. The manager called Ethan again. This time, his voice was different. He said, "I'm sorry, Ethan. I was wrong." Ethan simply nodded. He did not say, "I told you so." He did not say, "It wasn't my fault." He did not say anything. And for the first time, people started respecting him. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say. From that day, Ethan began to change. He began to understand something powerful. He realized that silence gives you control. When you react to everything, you give your power to others. When you stay silent, you keep your power. He started observing more and speaking less. When people argued, he listened. When people insulted him, he stayed calm. When people tried to provoke him, he smiled. And something magical happened. People stopped bothering him. People started respecting him. People started listening when he spoke. Because now, when Ethan spoke, his words had weight. His words had value. His words had power. One evening, Ethan was sitting in a park. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted with orange and gold. He watched people walking, talking, laughing. And he noticed something. The loudest people were not the happiest. The quietest people looked the strongest. He realized that silence is not empty. Silence is full of answers. Weeks passed, and Ethan became a different person. Not weak. Not afraid. But calm. Confident. In control. One day, a new employee joined the office. His name was Daniel. He was young, nervous, and unsure of himself. People often interrupted him. People often ignored him. And Ethan saw himself in Daniel. One afternoon, Daniel was blamed for a mistake he did not make. Ethan watched as Daniel tried to defend himself. His voice was shaking. His words were desperate. But nobody listened. After the meeting, Daniel sat alone, looking defeated. Ethan walked to him and sat beside him. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he said softly, "You don't have to attend every argument you are invited to." Daniel looked at him, confused. Ethan smiled and said, "Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words." That night, Daniel thought about those words. And slowly, Daniel began to change too. Months later, Ethan's life improved in ways he never expected. His manager trusted him more. His colleagues respected him more. And most importantly, he respected himself more. Because he no longer felt the need to prove himself to everyone. He understood his value. He understood his power. And that power was silence. One day, the same colleague who had blamed him before came to him and said, "Ethan, how do you stay so calm? How do you stay so quiet?" Ethan looked at him and said, "Because peace is more valuable than winning arguments." That night, Ethan stood in front of his apartment window, looking at the city lights. The city was still loud. People were still arguing. The world was still noisy. But inside him, there was silence. And that silence was his strength. He remembered the boy he used to be. The boy who reacted to everything. The boy who tried to prove himself. The boy who thought speaking more made him stronger. He smiled. Because now he knew the truth. The strongest man in the room is not the one who speaks the most. It is the one who stays calm. It is the one who stays silent. It is the one who controls himself. Years later, Ethan became a leader. Not because he was the loudest, but because he was the calmest. People trusted him. People followed him. People respected him. And whenever someone asked him his secret, he gave the same answer. He said, "Silence teaches you who people really are. And silence teaches people who you really are. Because silence is not empty. Silence is full of strength. Silence is full of confidence. Silence is full of power." And Ethan's life proved one simple truth. You don't always need words to win. Sometimes, silence is enough. Sometimes, silence is everything. And sometimes, the moment you choose silence is the moment you change your life forever. Ethan did not realize when silence stopped being a technique and became a part of his identity. Weeks passed, and people around him began to notice the change. He was no longer the restless boy who reacted to everything. He had become calm, observant, and strangely confident. But life always tests you when you start changing. One afternoon, Ethan received an email that shook his heart. It was from another company he had applied 2 months ago. He opened it with excitement, but his excitement quickly died. The email said they had rejected him. For a moment, the old Ethan returned. His chest became tight. His mind filled with angry thoughts. I am not good enough. I will never succeed. Life is unfair. His fingers wanted to type an emotional reply. His tongue wanted to complain. His mind wanted to panic. But then he remembered the bench. He remembered Victor. He remembered the power of silence. He closed his laptop slowly. He did nothing. He just sat there and breathed. The silence did not remove the pain, but it stopped the pain from controlling him. In that silence, he realized something important. Rejection was not the end. It was information. It was direction. It was life saying, not this way. Try another way. And for the first time, instead of reacting with emotion, he responded with awareness. Days later, Ethan faced another test, this time more personal. His father, who had always doubted his dreams, told him during dinner, maybe you should stop chasing big dreams and accept a normal job. You are wasting time. The words hurt deeply. The old Ethan would have argued, defended himself, tried to prove his worth. But now, he stayed silent. Not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough not to fight. He looked at his father calmly and simply said, I understand. That night, alone in his room, he allowed himself to feel the pain fully. Silence did not mean suppressing emotions. It meant processing them without noise. In that quiet room, Ethan made a promise to himself. He would not prove his father wrong with words. He would prove him wrong with actions. Silence became his shield and his weapon at the same time. Months passed, and Ethan continued practicing silence every day. He listened more than he spoke. He observed more than he reacted. He learned more than he argued. And slowly, his life began to change. One day, during a small networking event, Ethan met a business owner named Clara. She spoke to many people, but she noticed Ethan differently. He was not interrupting. He was not trying to impress. He was simply listening. After the conversation, Clara said something unexpected. She said, you are different. Most people only wait for their turn to speak. But you listen to understand. She offered him a small role in her company. It was not a big opportunity, but it was a door. And Ethan knew silence had opened it. Working with Clara changed Ethan even more. He learned that successful people did not waste energy on useless noise. They thought before they spoke. They observed before they acted. They understood before they judged. One day, Clara asked him, "Ethan, what is your biggest strength?" Ethan paused. The old version of him would have given a quick answer. But now, he allowed silence to help him find the truth. He replied, "I have learned to stay calm when everything inside me wants to react." Clara smiled and said, "That is rare. Protect that strength." Years passed. Ethan grew in his career, but more importantly, he grew within himself. Silence had taught him patience. Silence had taught him clarity. Silence had taught him emotional control. But the most beautiful moment came one evening when he returned to the same park bench where everything had started. The bench was old now. The paint was faded. But the memories were alive. He sat there and looked at the sky. He remembered the broken, angry, confused boy he once was. And he realized something powerful. His life had not changed because the world became easier. His life had changed because he had become stronger. As he sat there, he noticed a young boy sitting nearby. The boy looked frustrated, constantly checking his phone, muttering to himself. Ethan saw himself in that boy. After a while, the boy asked Ethan, "Why do you look so peaceful?" Ethan smiled. He did not answer immediately. He let silence create curiosity. Then he said softly, "Because I stopped reacting to everything." The boy looked confused. Ethan continued, "Most people think power is in speaking louder. But real power is in controlling when you speak and when you don't." The boy listened carefully. Ethan realized he had become what Victor once was for him. At that moment, Ethan understood the final truth. Silence was not empty. It was full. It was full of awareness, full of strength, full of wisdom. Silence gave you the space to meet yourself. And once you met yourself, nothing outside could break you easily. Years later, Ethan became known as a calm and wise leader. People came to him for advice. They asked him how he stayed calm in difficult situations. He always gave the same answer: "I learned to pause." He explained that silence was not about never speaking. It was about speaking only when your words had value. It was about choosing peace over reaction. It was about mastering yourself. One night, standing alone in his apartment, looking at the city lights, Ethan whispered to himself, "Silence saved my life." He realized that silence had protected him from saying words he would regret. Silence had protected him from making emotional decisions. Silence had helped him see clearly when his mind was full of storms. Silence had helped him grow from a boy controlled by emotions into a man controlled by awareness. And in the end, Ethan understood something most people never understand in their entire lives. The world is full of noise. Everyone is speaking. Everyone is reacting. Everyone is trying to prove something. But the people who truly win in life are not the loudest. They are the calmest. They are the ones who can sit in silence and still feel powerful. Because silence is not weakness. Silence is mastery. From that day on, Ethan lived with one simple rule. When emotions rise, pause. When anger comes, breathe. When confusion appears, stay still. Because in silence, answers appear. In silence, strength grows. In silence, you meet the strongest version of yourself. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English and your life, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join this learning journey with us. And watch the next story on your screen to continue improving your English.